The Kingdom series started life on Microsoft Windows, and ports to various consoles including the Nintendo Switch followed under the name of the reworked version Kingdom New Lands. Its sequel, Kingdom 2 Crowns, has now also graced the Switch. Should we look forward to its coronation, or should it abdicate its throne? I'm Glenn for Switchup, thank you to the developers for the review copy, and now let's find out. So as mentioned, Kingdom 2 Crowns' predecessor, Kingdom New Lands, is also available on the Switch, and this sequel is very similar in terms of its basic premise. This is a micro-strategy game that involves light resource management elements and almost plays like a tower defense game but set on a 2D plane. The game's tagline of build, expand, defend is pretty much spot on. You play as a monarch without a kingdom. In order to rectify this, you must of course build one. You start by collecting a few coins and use these to recruit people into your kingdom. From there, you must skill them up to become archers by equipping them with a bow, or builders by equipping them with a hammer, all the while ensuring that you do not run out of money. Having builders allows you to construct walls around your base and watchtowers for the archers to occupy, and this will be essential for when the night falls. More on that in a minute. More roles within your kingdom will become available as you play, including farmers, and the duties that these subjects fulfill, other than building and defending, are how you build up a source of income. You can also pay the trader to travel the lands and sell your wares, earning you additional money, or you may come across these chests in the wild if you are lucky. Buildings in your town can be upgraded over time, with the ultimate aim being that you must repair the dilapidated ship found somewhere in your kingdom in order that you may move on to pastures new and build up an empire elsewhere too. Kingdom 2 Crowns is very light on tutorials, with a quick explanation of the basics the most you get. The rest is pretty much left for you to work out for yourself. It took a while for the game to click with me, due to some of the intricacies of what I needed to do maybe not being as obvious to me as they may well be to others, and once I had got a grasp of the basics and worked out what I needed to do, I started again to attempt to put all this into action, and this time the game started to really get its claws into me. What I'm trying to say is that if you have no prior knowledge of the series, then this one may be a bit of a slow burner for you, but give yourself enough time to understand it and it does become quite addictive. So as alluded to earlier, when the night comes you are attacked by a villainous lot known as the Greed. They will attempt to break down your walls and steal your resources. Any of your subjects they hit will need to be re-recruited, and they may also steal your weapons and your gold. Finally, if they hit into you and knock your crown from your head, then you better reclaim it quickly, as if they get it first, your reign is over. Whereas in the previous game this meant game over, in this one you will continue afterwards as your previous character's heir. This allows for a better sense of progression when compared to its predecessor. Other improvements for this sequel include the ability to return to your previous islands later on in order to further improve them, again adding a better sense of progression and closure to the game, and the main new inclusion being local drop-in multiplayer. 2 Crowns almost feels made for 2-player, as it makes traversing the land and getting everything you want to do before nightfall that bit easier. You do not directly control your subjects. There is no clicking on where you want them to go, and while the idea of this is not an issue in and of itself, the AI does make it a little problematic. For example, having built a lookout post and a wall at either end of my land to protect it during the night, I watched as one of my archers took his position ready to keep the town safe. Unfortunately, the other archer would not make his way to the post on the far left of the town, and instead stood on the other side of town. As the attackers came, we had no one to defend us, and they made their way in, with the archer only doing his job once the attackers had got within eyesight of where he was standing. By this time, they had killed my 2 builders. Builders are not exempt from this criticism either, and would sometimes stand just outside the boundaries of the camp as night fell, leading to them being attacked. Taking 2 steps closer to camp would have seen them safe, but the AI didn't fancy this it seems, and they ended up dying. Again, this doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes they took their positions perfectly first time. I'm not quite sure what makes it happen, but it's a little frustrating in all honesty. Controls are extremely simple. Movement is handled by either the left stick, the D-pad or the right stick, whereas using your coins happens by either pressing or holding down the A button. Pressing down the ZR button will make your horse gallop. Whilst playing in 2-player mode, there is the option to use a Joy-Con each, meaning that you do not need to own a second set of controllers, and this is always a welcome addition. I mean, it is what the Switch was originally marketed around after all. This is a perfect example of a game not overcomplicating things, and the game is all the better for it. Gameplay receives 15 out of 20 and the controls receive 17 out of 20. The overabundance of games using pixel art in recent years has led to the style being considered lazy or an easy way out by many. But I think it's important that we consider this statement for a moment and make a clear distinction. After all, surely not all pixels are born equal. When games using sprites are adding nothing to the style to that which could have been achieved 25 to 30 years ago and are claiming it to be retro or paying homage, there's a good argument to say that this is quite lazy. When a game creates something in the pixel style that just wouldn't have been possible in the era that its style is emulating, this is just as innovative and impressive as anything that a 3D game world can offer, at least in my opinion. The game would not have been possible on an 8 or 16-bit console, probably not even a 32-bit console to be honest. This is 2018 pixel art. The incredible levels of parallax scrolling which accentuate the monolithic and gargantuan pillars and statues in the background, followed by the peaks and mountains further forward, your growing town and the forestation that surrounds it, and finally the beautiful flowing stream in the foreground. A stream that reflects the busy world around it to quite stunning levels of accuracy. Fish jump nonchalantly out of the water, breaking its silent calm for a brief moment, and leaves fall from the trees gracefully, whilst mist and clouds transcend the land elegantly. The use of colour really is extremely effective too. The transition between day and night in particular sees the land bathed in deep purples and oranges as the sun sets behind the mountains. The music is absolutely spellbinding. The soft piano melodies just exude tranquility, and I love the way each track seemed to weave in and out of the game, implicitly adding to your gaming experience. All music stops at night when you are under attack, and each new morning is greeted by the toll of the church bells, welcoming in another new day. The sound effects of the rain falling, complete with thunder cracking through the sky, again serves to immerse you in this delightful pixel-based world. Sometimes the music is a little too sparse for its own good. Whilst I loved how it dispersed at times only to return randomly, as I mentioned earlier, it did sometimes leave the game just feeling a little too empty. And graphics get 19 out of 20, whilst the audio receives 17 out of 20. Kingdom 2 Crowns costs £17.99, $19.99 or €19.99. And for this price you are getting yourself an absolutely beautiful, challenging, albeit quite repetitive experience. The motto of build, expand, defend could be exchanged for lava, rinse, repeat, as you will be doing this a lot. The ability to return to old towns is a welcome addition, as is the inclusion of a 2-player mode, and whilst there is an element of repetition, the addictive nature of the game certainly outweighed this in my playthrough, and value receives 15 out of 20. To conclude, Kingdom 2 Crowns builds on the work of its predecessor by adding gameplay improvements including a 2-player mode. Its core mechanic can still be fairly repetitive, but as mentioned, its addictive qualities supersede any feelings of tedium that repetition can sometimes evoke. If you are looking for a game with light strategy elements, stunning visuals and delightful music, Kingdom 2 Crowns reigns supreme, and it receives a Switchup score of 83%. Many thanks as always for watching. Please do leave a like if you like what you've just seen and heard. Consider subscribing if you haven't done so already for all things Switch all the time, and as always, happy gaming.